Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris McIntyre. If we kind of move forward to the next slide, I'll go over the agenda for tonight. I always like to kind of give a general overview about what to expect for these sessions so you kind of know what's next, what we've talked about, so that if any questions pop up, feel free to put them either in the chat as we speak, or you can wait to the very end too, and we'll have kind of a Q&A, a chance for you to ask myself or some of our panelists as well. So first thing forward, it's great to have you here wherever you're located in the world, but also whenever time of day you're watching us, whether it's live or on demand. We're glad you're with us. I really enjoy these sessions because I get to talk a little bit about our program and kind of talk about all the wonderful things we have to offer, but also answer any questions that may pop up. So specifically today, we're going to start with a program overview. Keeping in mind my role as employer liaison, I work with employers. So I help employers hire our students, whether that's putting on recruiting events, finding new opportunities, going over conferences. And I'll talk a little bit about my specific role more in depth in a bit, but I also work with students. So know that I don't just work with employers, I work with students on all things career. So maybe that's networking, resumes, job searching, kind of everything in between. My big goal is to really connect employers and students within the PPI space. So after the program overview, I'll talk a little bit more about my roles in terms of program support. So things like what I offer students, what our program offers students, how we make sure our students are successful. And then I'll get into the internship and research options and have a little bit of a discussion about where my current efforts are at. So not just internships, but also thinking about full-time roles, thinking about options throughout the school year and not just our summer internship program is kind of our next frontier. Then I'll get into outcomes and potential career paths. So I'll go over postgraduate data, both salary stats, but also potential roles available. And some of our roles our graduates have taken in locations. And then I'm going to, the funnest part, I'm going to talk with some of former interns who are currently in our program. So I'm going to ask them a few questions about their experiences, their time in the program, and some reflection about kind of what it was like to be an intern at a few different locations and integrating some of their coursework within their internship. And then I'll end up with some next steps and questions. So that way, if you have anything pressing, you're able to ask. So we are going to start with our program overview. So as you can see, we have two different degree options for students to consider taking. We have our graduate capstone certificate and our Master of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences degree. Our capstone is nested into the MS program. So students who want to just dip their toes into the water or maybe not quite meet those eligibility requirements can apply for a certificate with the intention to eventually move into the MS. And as you can see, the capstone is 7 courses and 12 credits. And because those are nested, that means once you complete the capstone, a total of 14 credits for the MS, which means you're about a little under halfway done after you complete the capstone certificate. So everyone in the program, whether you're capstone or MS, are going to take courses like psychedelic drugs in science and society, drug history, appropriate use of abused drugs, current trends in drug discovery and development, and research ethics, and legal structures, and cannabinoids in science and society. So that's a mouthful, but just know that you're going to get a good foundation for the capstone. And then if you choose to move on to the MS, you can see the following courses after that, which includes a couple of electives at the very bottom of the screen. So one thing I do want to point out on the next slide is that we are very, very cognizant of making sure you don't just have the technical skills, but also the 21st century skills. Some may call those kind of the intangible skills or soft skills. Either way, those are skills that are hugely important in the workforce that employers look for that we make sure our students have. So things like professionalism and work ethic, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, which is both oral and written, teamwork, collaboration, and leadership. So we make sure you get those skills, whether they're actually in your courses or working with me on things like writing a cover letter, how to prepare for an interview. So that way you don't just have the technical skills within your courses and the curriculum, but also making sure that you've got those skills that are going to let you succeed in the interview. It's also important to note that you are within the School of Pharmacy when you're in the PPI program. And we're proud of the fact that we're a well-regarded School of Pharmacy, and we intentionally include industry professionals for our faculty base and to help with building the curriculum. Our program is versatile and flexible to meet students where they're at, with the ability to control how many courses you can take each semester. And I think our guests, Maya and Owen, kind of talk about, if we get that far, how to structure your courses and how long to be in the program. And your modality. That can be either online, so wherever you're at, or hybrid, if you wanted to be in Madison to take some courses within the School of Pharmacy in person. We also have high-touch advising and opportunities. I'll talk about the career development opportunities that we provide, but you also have academic advisors to be as a useful tool to make sure you're on the right track for graduation at the appropriate time for your situation. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about what we do and kind of big picture results. So before I kind of get into the nitty gritty about the X's and O's of what I do, I always like to take a step back and think about all the cool things our program, both our students, our faculty, and just kind of the bigger picture have happened in the last few years. Our goal is to develop leaders to make change happen because we walk the walk. These are some of the examples of what students have been working on and how the field is growing and developing, both in the US, but also globally. And if you look at the screen roughly from left to right, we kind of start at the very left with some of the cool things our students and alums in the PPA program are doing. So that could be writing papers, it could be calling for change with state regulators and lawmakers. And then in the middle, those are kind of some program things. You see at the very, very center, Psychedelic Sciences 2025. That was one of the coolest things we did as a program. We had a ton of students and we had a nice booth set up at Psychedelic Science 2025 in Denver. Some of you on the call may have actually been there or heard about it, but it was a really great way for us to show our program and all the cool things that we're doing, but also have our students ingrained within the bigger psychedelic community. Opportunities happen from that conference, as well as just a lot of great networking, both professionally, but also just within the network of UW-Madison alums overall. Then at the far right, you can see the greater Wisconsin and global community, kind of where we're at in the field. And we anticipate things are going to move in a positive direction, especially because our graduates are doing some really great things in the field. So now that we've kind of gone over the program structure, kind of what it means to be a PPI student and kind of where our students and what they're doing, I want to talk just a few minutes about the program support for career development. Support, I kind of think about it at three separate levels: curricular level, the program level, and the individual level. And my motto is that all three of those levels are important because each give you specific tools and skills to help you succeed in the job search and once you're actually on the job. So you'll have opportunities to stay up to date with your courses, engage with your employers throughout the program, and have an individual strategy based on your situation. The curricular level ensures that your classes prepare you for a career. We partner with employers and leading instructors in the field to make sure that you're learning those skills that are in demand. As I talked about earlier, both those technical skills, but also those 21st century skills. That means we've got structure of the curriculum to support your student learning and skill building. Courses are in line with what employers are looking for. I do my best, and I do it a lot, reach out to employers to make sure that the skills we're teaching are in demand. So that way, if an employer can tell us, hey, students need skills XYZ, we try to incorporate that with what the students are learning, whether it's in the classroom or other workshops or opportunities that we give to students. At the program level, that includes opportunities cultivated specifically for PPI students. We'll talk about the internship program in the next slide, but that could also mean employers seeking resumes. So we may have an employer who needs a full-time hire within the next couple of weeks, so a pretty quick turnaround. And so I'll reach out to alums or upcoming graduates and ask, hey, if you're interested in this opportunity, send me your resume within the next day or two, and I send it directly off to the employers. We also host things like networking events, spotlights, where we can kind of shine some really cool work employers are doing in the field to allow students not just to learn, but also to network, as well as career development workshops preparing you for the job search. Those are things I put on that are just for our PPI and ADD, Applied Drug Development, our sister program students. And those cover things like how to network, how to use LinkedIn, how to write a resume. So pretty much anything from the start building blocks to the very more kind of advanced networking pieces of it. I offer those workshops throughout the year, and those are always recorded on demand. So as a student, you'll have those at your disposal. I also want to highlight the UW-Madison Psychedelic Symposium. One of the coolest things our program does is we partner with a local organization in the Madison area, and we host a 2-day symposium where we pretty much shine light on all the great things that are being done in the research of psychedelic sciences. So that's always in Madison. That's every year. Highly recommend if you are interested and able to get out to Madison November 13th through 14th. I'll show a little bit more information at the very end of this slide, but that is one thing at the program level that's going to be invaluable to you as a potential student. And finally, when we get to the individual level, those are things that are important to you as a specific individual. Everyone's different in terms of where you're at geographically, what skills you have, your undergraduate education. So one thing I kind of try to do is meet you where you're at. So I'll work with you to create a job plan based on all those different things I talked about: location, interest, and other factors. We're going to help you incorporate the PPI curriculum into your existing skills and previous education. And we're going to help you get the tools to succeed, but we're not a placement agency. That means, and I think Maya and Owen can talk about this a little bit more in depth later, you're going to do the work. So we'll give you opportunities and the skills to succeed, but ultimately you're the one who's going to be reaching out to network, to apply for the job, to actually do the interview. So our goal is to give you the tools to be successful, but ultimately you have to be the one to put in the work. And that's something that we live by here in Career Services in the School of Pharmacy. So now that we've said that, I wanted to brag a little bit about where our students are at, both in terms of our internship program and where our next focuses are at. So we do have an internship program that's specifically dedicated just for our PPI students. So we cultivate that through the relationships we build, both through networking, through conference attendees, and just word of mouth. And so that includes roles in a variety of psychedelic realms. On the list here, you're going to see 6 or 7 different types of roles, as well as organizations who have offered internships and hired previously. Now, one caveat to this changes year to year. Our summer internship program usually has between 8 to 12 opportunities. Usually about half are in person, and most of those are in the Madison area, but the other half are remote. And those run the gamut from 5-10 hours a week part-time, up through 35 to 40 hours per week full-time. So it really depends on where the industry's at, but generally speaking, 8 to 12 opportunities each summer that are specifically only for UW-Madison PPI students. And my goal is always to have a mix of different dimensions in terms of locations, type of role, and industry within the psychedelics. As you can see, some of the opportunities are wildly, wildly different, right? When we think about a psychedelic medicinal chemist, that's going to be quite a bit different from something like a clinical trial writer and reviewer. So I try to have opportunities that really meet where our students are at in terms of their backgrounds. And on the right of the screen, you can see some of the organizations who have posted. You've probably heard some of these, or at least know about them, whether it's a USONA, MindMed, Calyx Law, ARI, Integrata, and a new one from the Twin Cities IAT. And so that's kind of a brief window in our internship program. It's something that I start work usually around Thanksgiving and spend the entire November, December, all the way through March cultivating those and getting things ready. Ultimately, they're announced through a special workshop PowerPoint in around March. And then students apply and usually get an offer end of April, early May, and spend their summer at their internship. So in terms of the timeline, that's kind of what you can expect in terms of when you look for the internship if you're taking part through our program. But I also want to emphasize that I don't want you just to rely on these internships. I will work with students on, yes, apply to these, keep these in mind, but this shouldn't be the only things that you do. I want to make sure students in the program are cultivating a lot of opportunities, even if they're not ones that we provide, because the goal for me is for all students to be successful. So the best thing you can do is use our skills and opportunities, but also make sure you're kind of working on your own plan as well. Last thing I want to mention at the very bottom in bold, you see my current focus or year-round opportunities. We spent the first few years of the program really growing and establishing the internship program. And now that that's kind of a foundation of our PPI program, I've really spent the last year trying to ramp up efforts to increase our job opportunities for full-time candidates, as well as internships throughout the school year. So instead of just having a summer opportunity list, June, July, August, trying to incorporate more opportunities within the specific semester. So that way, if students are taking the program maybe part-time, they have a couple extra hours, I'm trying to get some opportunities for them so they can have exposure to the field even while they're taking classes instead of just waiting for summer. And so my specific process going into what I do to cultivate these roles are kind of 3 different ways. My first is individual outreach. So I'll go through student feedback, I'll go through potential faculty and staff, depending on what they know, and I speak with students constantly. And I always have conversations with them about where the industry is headed. I always hope that they can learn from me skills and how to secure a job, but also I learn from them. I spend quite a bit of time on things like Psychedelic Alpha and LinkedIn, connecting with employers and sharing our program. So something I'm always cognizant of is networking and finding new opportunities for students through direct outreach, through students, and other opportunities. So that's kind of the first strategy I have. The second strategy I have is to really make a point to attend relevant conferences and events to forge partnerships. A lot of our direct opportunities have come from specific conferences just by chatting and seeing what their needs are and seeing what our students have in their toolbox and seeing if there's a good fit. And so the third way I go about doing this and increasing opportunities is leaning on our growing alumni network. We'll talk about this in the Q&A, I think, but one thing it's really important to know is now we're at the point where alums come to us with potential positions for PPI students. And that is one of the coolest things about my job is seeing them graduate, being successful, whether it's through the internship program or getting something after graduation, and coming to us to say, hey, we have this really cool role. Can you announce this to students, or can we get a resume book? And I find that awesome because that just shows you the power of the Badger community and the Badger Alumni Network. And so I'll always say Badgers love helping fellow Badgers. So once you're a part of this program, it's a really tight-knit community, and you want to help out other future Badger alums as well. So oftentimes alums, like I said, will come to me. And plus, because we thoroughly manage our postgraduate outcomes, this allows me to stay connected to graduates and stay in touch at all times. So I have a general good pulse on where alums are, so I can always reach out to them to kind of inquire about opportunities at the alums' workplaces. So kind of through those three-pronged strategies, we've been able to build our network of employers quite a bit within the last year or two. So actually, speaking of postgraduate outcomes, next I'm going to go over postgraduate outcomes and kind of where our alums are at. So a lot of text here, I'll kind of skim through this a little bit briefly in terms of the highlights. Our first graduating class for PPIs was 2023. So it's only been a couple years. And from that time, we've grown from 5 separate graduates in the first class. Now we have over 50. So if you think about that growth in just a couple years, that's a pretty big growth, right? And that's really exciting because you're kind of seeing our students take over a lot of different parts of the country, whether that's New York, California, Florida, Oregon, Louisiana, and even places like Canada. I will say that most of our students are graduating and working in the Madison and surrounding area. And that's probably a function of number one, it's where a lot of our students are located, but also number two, Madison is a pretty good hub for psychedelic research and psychedelic science with UW-Madison and some other organizations in the greater campus Madison community. We currently have about 70 enrolled in the MS program, and I had to double check that because that has skyrocketed within the last year or two, which is really a testament to the growth of our program and to prospective students kind of seeing where we're at as a program and wanting to be a part of it. So the last 2 slides I'm going to get into, I want to have a big caveat here. I send out a postgraduate outcome survey to every single student who graduates within 1 academic term. So all the figures and data I'm going to share in these final 2 or 3 bullet points are taken directly from that. So a big caveat to that is these are where students have told us that we're at. These aren't guesses, these are official numbers and documents. As you can see, the class of 2024 to 25 is $115,000 mean salary. I do want to preface that by one thing. Taking a step back, I made this point a few slides earlier, but we take the approach to work with students on being a holistic candidate. And one thing we emphasize is that we use your previous experiences in education, and we kind of figure out how PPI can be the topping on that sundae. So our students are diverse in terms of their background. So our salary ranges are going to be very diverse in terms of where students are at. This can lead to a very broad spectrum of roles, but also in salary figures. So we may have a couple of salaries that are pretty high based on where students were at before they entered their program, and we may have some that are not so high. So I do want to caveat to that, but that is our actual salary, is $115,000 mean salary from the recent class. And recent positions can include research science admin, research coordinators, data scientists, business and operations director, and clinical research coordinators. So again, really emphasizing that students who come in with a certain background, we really work with that background and figure out how can the PPI supplement that, whether it's going into a new industry, a new direction, or really incorporating some new skills to figure out how can we further you along in your specific career. So if we move on next to some testimonials, here's a couple of employers. Angie, I believe Owen's probably had experience with Angie. Angie was a fairly new employer for us in the last couple of years. She hired a couple students in the past, and as you can see, she's been very impressed. She's come back every single semester, every single year to hire. And Graham has been with us since day one. Calix Law. Graham comes to us each summer needing a student, and he's actually hired at least one full-time student from a previous internship. So he had a lot of success with a couple interns, made an offer for full-time, and they're still there. And so as you can see, not just the fact of what they're saying and their words are, but I find it pretty powerful that a lot of employers come back each semester and each summer to hire more students. That's a testament to the skills of our students, because if it wasn't a good fit, they would just hire one and move on if it's not a good partnership. But because we have employers who come back to us each summer, that should tell you that our students are doing pretty good things in the workplace, as well as actually getting off full-time offers from their previous internships. So the last slide before we get into our Q&A, I want to also emphasize that while the PPI program is going to give you ample opportunities to engage with employers, you're also going to be part of the greater UW-Madison community. And I can't emphasize how powerful this fact is, because that means you're going to get access to opportunities and resources available to UW-Madison students and graduates. UW-Madison as a whole institution, Career Services hosts 2 campus-wide career fairs yearly, one giant one in the fall with a couple hundred employers, and one big one in the spring, also with a few hundred employers. Not just that, but you're also going to get some highly specialized and smaller fairs for each school and majors that you will have the opportunity to attend if it kind of fits your goals. So you have the opportunities to really get exposure to a lot of employers at giant events for the entire UW-Madison community. And again, a lot of them are going to be in person, like the Career and Internship Fair in the fall and spring, but we'll have quite a few that are going to be remote too. So if you're joining us from a different part of the country, a lot of employers who recruit our students, UW-Madison students as a whole, are going to have virtual opportunities as well. So don't let that fact deter you. Point 2, again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This happens each November. The UW-Madison Transdisciplinary Center for Research in Psychedelic Substances. Oh, I always screw that up. I actually think I got it right this time. We host a psychedelic symposium that brings together community engagement approaches, scientific and clinical work performed in this field at UW, as well as featuring nationally renowned keynote speakers. Again, this year it's going to take place on November 13th and 14th in the Madison area. So please, if interested, we'll send you more information, send you some links after this webinar, I believe. And we'd love to see you join us because I'll be there and a couple of the other folks on this call will be there as well. So mark that on your calendar if you're unsure yet, okay? So third, actually I mentioned specialized career for in campus recruiting events, but if we go down to Handshake, another good thing about being part of the UW-Madison community is that you're going to have lifetime access to Handshake. A lot of you have probably used Handshake or some sort of career services platform at other institutions, but because of the size of UW-Madison, you're going to get a lot of specific opportunities at Madison just through Handshake. So not just you'll be able to see different events to recruit with, to interact with employers through networking, you're also going to have a lot of jobs that are only available for UW-Madison students. Going global access. So if you're interested in jobs abroad, may not be as applicable for some of you, but we do get some students who are interested in finding opportunities outside the States. Going global will give you access to that. UW-Madison subscribes, so as a student and alum, you'll have access to it to kind of figure out what are jobs opportunities in other parts of the country. So you can filter by employers, or sorry, other parts of the world. So you can filter by employers, you can filter by industry, as well as big interview. So that's a resource you'll also have at UW that we pay for and have access to basically practice interviewing. I'm a resource for students to do mock interviews, practice interviewing. I host workshops on interviewing, but you'll also have Big Interview, which is a platform where you're able to practice interviewing as well. Coolest thing about Big Interviewing is that you're able to watch yourself. So you'll get asked a question, you'll answer, and then you can watch it. You're going to be horrified because you're going to see a lot of things that are uncomfortable, like a lot of filler words, but it's good for you to watch to get out some of those kinks. So moral of the story with this is that you're going to have other opportunities besides myself to help with some of your career development just by being a UW-Madison student. Beyond Graduate School is another resource just for graduate students that we subscribe to. They'll host events and webinars and opportunities to improve those professional skills throughout the year. So we'll have a series, for example, on how to use LinkedIn to network for new opportunities. And it'll be a 2 to 3 part webinar that you'll have access to just for being a UW-Madison student and a graduate student at that. And finally, you're going to be a member of a network of hundreds of thousands of current and former Badgers. I mentioned that Badgers love helping fellow Badgers. This means that you're going to have access to UW graduates who are eager to help you throughout your career. So Badger Bridge is that kind of warehouse that the Alumni Association hosts, so you're able to kind of see other Badgers, so you can reach out for other Badger graduates, so you can reach out for networking, informational interview, and just to chat to build your network. So lesson here is that being a part of UW, you're going to have a lot of different opportunities as you kind of move forward in your career, both for jobs, but also for networking. So with that, we're going to get into some student internship insight. So on the call, we have a couple folks joining us. We have Owen and Maya. I'll let them introduce themselves briefly before we kind of get into Q&A. So let's start with Owen. Welcome.
Chris, appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Owen, as was mentioned. I'm about halfway through my time in the PPI program so far, or at least anticipated, depending on a few different variables. But yeah, currently living in Colorado, completing the program remotely, and yeah, just figuring it out. It's all pretty new for everyone involved. But yeah, I think yeah, as we were talking about, there's a lot of space to kind of forge your own path and whatnot. So that's yeah, pretty much what I'm doing day by day. Yeah, and I'm sure we can get into more specific questions later,
And
but broad
and
overview.
real quick, can you go over the internships you've had? Because they've done a few different things, which is really cool. We'll
Yeah.
get into your story in a little bit, but can you kind of go over the internships you have very briefly?
Yeah, so at least the ones that I saw that were listed on the slide, yeah, right now I'm a marketing and business development intern for RE, which is a startup that was founded by, at least co-founded by, from what I understand, some members of the graduate cohort from a few years ago. It's essentially like a digital platform for providers and users of psychedelics convene and share resources, integration related resources and stuff like that, with the idea of making them hopefully more widespread and affordable and that sort of thing. So mostly I've just been working on just kind of, I mean, it's a pretty early stage startup, so you got to wear like a lot of different hats and stuff like that, but definitely doing a lot of marketing support, business development, so like networking, trying to form like affiliate partnerships and stuff like that. Also here and there assisting with like developing legal policy and stuff like that too, and other kinds of just ad hoc tasks that kind of come up to support the platform. So that's at least one of the more recent ones. Also saw the Chacruna Institute one there. That one was one that I actually got externally from the program. It started as like a yeah marketing internship, and then they have like a decent amount of flexibility for interns as well. So I ended up switching from marketing to education support, which is still like a lot of marketing still, but also helping with like the facilitation of courses and other educational materials and stuff like that. Actually working on getting like a discussion forum going with a UW professor with some of the research that he's got going on, which I'm excited for. But yeah, that one I just kind of came across. I was just like going through my email inbox and saw, because I was subscribed to Chacruna's newsletter, that there was a marketing internship open, and I didn't think I would get it because I regarded them pretty highly and realized they're like pretty you know well known in the space. But I figured might as well shoot the shot, and then yeah, sure enough, got an email for an interview. Yeah, I think I did pretty well. I guess evidently not to toot my own horn necessarily, but I got the thing. So yeah, ended up getting it in like February of this past year, just kind of like yeah, on a whim, just doing stuff in the meantime, trying to see what else was out there. And yeah, I think it's a good those two ones are pretty representative too of what we were kind of talking about because like yeah, we do get the, PPI specific internships, which definitely is super helpful and like, shout out Chris and everybody else involved for really kind of wrangling those resources together because it was, it's a pretty good pool to choose from, I would say. And especially it being selective, or I guess like only for PPI students, it definitely like pretty significantly narrows the applicant pool, which like, when there's like PhDs applying to entry level positions these days, it definitely helps to, know that like there's a reasonably a leveled barrier to entry, I guess, as opposed to what feels like just kind of like a void that I'm throwing applications into in the external world, basically. So there was that, but I think a big part, I think, of at least what helped me get the RE internship too that was brought up during my interview was that I do some of this marketing work with Chacruna Institutes, which, it's kind of cool to just sort of see the interplay between like opportunities that you can get uh, kind of on your own time and then ones that you can also get through the program, which like, going even further back, I had another internship from my first year in the program with Angie from Easy Research Solutions, or I guess technically TrialLinks now, doing more marketing stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like a loop where like, if you get one, it can tend to, serve you well as you apply to others and everything. And then, as you just do it enough and learn enough from your classes and network and do all the other things, I mean, by the time you get the degree, you accumulated a pretty significant amount of social capital, I would say, as a result of having gone through the program. So that's at least been my experience so far. I've definitely been pretty fortunate to be able to have all these different experiences and everything. And I do realize that that's not the case for everybody. But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, even as I was applying for my first internship and thinking that it wasn't going to go anywhere, I mean, me and Chris were already game planning for, if it were to go wrong or go south or I didn't get anything or it didn't pan out how we thought, like what would be the plan B? What are some ways to upskill or, find other stuff in the meantime? So there's usually, always some amount of, you know, I guess like support you can get whether it's like, through the program specific resources or just kind of like through the network generally or that sort of thing. But yeah, that's been at least my internship experience so far. And then there's been some other ones too that I can also get into as a result of like the coursework and other kinds of stuff that the program offers. But I can also let Maya talk too if we want to let her introduce herself and all that.
Well, real quick, what was your major in undergrad? You want to share that?
Majored in sociology and minored in cognitive science. So there was a certain amount of, like physical hard sciences or whatever that I had taken in undergrad, like neuroscience or pharmacology or evolutionary biology, but definitely not by a long shot the primary kind of discipline that I was studying in. But yeah, as I was applying, I kind of did the capstone route first and then, went into the masters and everything from there. But I mean, I enjoy kind of like recounting this little, I guess, like tidbit or whatever, because like when I was immediately having graduated from undergrad in like 2021, I very specifically recall seeing, as I was looking for like graduate programs in psychedelic studies, I saw this one emerging, which it probably was in like its very first cohort around that time as well, if I'm remembering correctly. But basically, I saw that it was like a, pharmaceutical sciences program, really heavy emphasis on like the, biochemistry and other stuff like that. And yeah, I thought, maybe just because of my background being a little bit more socially, scientifically oriented might not be a great fit for me. So I kind of like wrote it off. And then, yeah, two unsuccessful rounds of PhD applications later, I decided I needed to pivot. And that one came back around on, my Google feed or whatever. And, maybe it's just thanks to the algorithm, I guess. But ended up coming across my attention, saw that there was the capstone pathway you could take to, and just thought like, well, this PhD thing is not working. Might as well give this a try. So I got in touch with Anna, who's like one of the enrollment coaches and everything. I think probably in February of 2023. And then yeah, we worked on a plan to like how I could feasibly you know, do all of like the necessary prerequisite courses and things like that. And then that was around the time of psychedelic science too in 2023. So I, went there, met up with some people from the program, listened to some of their professors speak and everything. And, by the time it was like August or so to apply, it had all kind of come together and worked out in my favor. So, you know, maybe if anybody's feeling like a bit discouraged about it, I guess, because they're undergrad major, I mean, always give it a shot, I mean, I think they do try to have a pretty well-rounded, group of students and everything too, to really kind of make sure that we're not just all like chemists or that sort of thing too, which I definitely appreciate because, I mean, as important as that stuff is too, I mean, I definitely really firmly believe in interdisciplinarity, and the benefits that that can bring to the study of a subject. So, um, yeah, I mean, definitely just I would advise like depending on your background and things like that too, just try to be really specific about like how your experience and knowledge and whatnot would lend itself to kind of like contributing to like the diversity of perspectives in the cohort. Like, why is your background and whatever it is, like sociology, like literary studies, like sustainability studies, whatever it may be, just like try to find your inroad into the psychedelic world, I would say, because like I'm sure there's like an angle for plenty of different things. It's just kind of like how creative can you get with, I guess, the pathway that you want to carve out for yourself. And then yeah, just really kind of drive that home as you're applying and that sort of thing. Of course, it helps to, get to know people in the program too and, attend events and demonstrate interest and everything. But like, definitely when it comes to the application, you're going to have to do what applications require and just like put your soul on a piece of paper and hope that it's, worthy of being accepted into the program, basically. But yeah, I think if you really just kind of put thought into how, both your academic and personal backgrounds and things have kind of led you to the path that you're on and the specific contribution you want to make and how specific aspects of the program you think could help you do that, then yeah, I think you're at a pretty good point to be able to make a convincing application statement and whatnot, which, yeah, like I said, I live in Colorado right now, and I was applying around the time that the Natural Medicine Health Act had just been passed. And, given that I have like a background in social sciences, I was really kind of leaning in on like the, you know, kind of like alternative pathway access scheme and whatnot, and how kind of like naturalistic use with like the nonprofit that I also do some research with right now, how they have like a big focus on naturalistic research of psychedelics and, what value that brings as opposed to like just the solely clinical trial study route of it, basically. So I was just kind of like, pulling together a lot of different stuff that I had kind of, accumulated over the years and, putting it into this format for the application and whatnot. But, I think it was definitely really helpful to talk to Anna about how to do that as well, because she was able to really provide some useful, like actionable feedback for, yeah, how to make it, yeah, like a compelling or convincing statement or whatever it may be.
Soul on a piece of paper. That's a great phrase. I'm going to
No,
steal
yeah,
that, by the way.
seriously, no,
And so
dude, yeah. It's after
I'm going to
2 years
steal
of
that.
PhD programs, like you do that and you pay like $100 per application. You don't
Yeah.
even get a reason why you're,
Yeah.
rejected basically. So it's can be soul crushing, but
Yeah.
it's still worth a try.
So I like this because it shows your background. It's going to be a bit different than our next guest. So I wanted to bring in Maya. So Maya, first, thank you for joining us. Can you kind of go over, first, let's talk about your internship, because I know you did an internship, and now what you have going on. You just got some really cool news. So you could kind of talk about that. Also making sure kind of give, what was your major in undergrad? To kind of give a, think about Owen's background. What was your major?
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Maya. I have been in the program, oh gosh, 3 semesters, I want to say. It has been a wild ride to say the least. This program is definitely, I think Owen said it best, in terms of not only social, I mean, yeah, I guess social capital is like one way to put it, like building your network and stuff in this program has been, or being a part of this program and building my network through this program has been really incredible. I was a biomedical sciences major at Texas A&M University. I graduated in 2023. I knew I wanted to go into psychedelic research and science. I didn't actually know if I wanted to like pursue a master's or do a PhD, go into medical school. I was a bit conflicted, but I knew I wanted to do psychedelic research. I knew I wanted to somehow contribute to it and be a part of this world. And so when I found out about this program, I was really excited. And so I went ahead and applied for it. Anna was also huge, huge, huge help during that process. I mean, everyone here has been incredible. Chris has been awesome, and I will talk about him in a moment. Almira has also been incredible, and I will also talk about her in a moment. And Ace, just everyone on the team has been phenomenal. But yeah, so I applied, got into the program, started in the capstone, ended up transitioning into the master's program shortly afterwards. And yeah, it's been incredible. In terms of internship stuff, I applied to the Integrata internship this past summer. So for those that don't know what Integrata or who Integrata is, it is a ketamine assisted psychotherapy clinic based here in Madison, Wisconsin. They work very closely with USONA Institute. And so there's a lot of like overlap between therapists and psychiatrists that sort of work within those spaces. There's actually quite a bit of overlap, and this is something I've noticed, but like quite a bit of overlap between a lot of like the clinical research spaces, a lot of like the clinic spaces, and a lot of like just other nonprofits. There's a lot of overlap between people who do work in several different spaces, which is very cool. And I think that kind of goes back to the networking thing is once you've built a good relationship with someone, it typically is beneficial in terms, I guess, of, the conversations you can have with them and the potential doors that opens. Um, but yeah, did the Intergrada internship this past summer. Chris was a huge help for kind of tailoring my CV and my cover letter and sort of helping me out in that regard. And I think I probably sent him a million emails. So thank you, Chris, for responding and being so helpful. um, but yeah, I also interned with Tess Durham, who graduated from this program pretty recently. And we ended up sort of doing a lot of work in setting up community ketamine-assisted psychotherapy groups. We actually just we cultivated a lot of like the application. So we basically like worked with the psychiatrist and the therapist who are both sort of going to be facilitating these community CAP groups. And so worked with them to sort of create an application for people to apply for the CAP groups. We set like a minimum or we set like a sliding scale limit. So a lot of what we talk about in this program is accessible psychedelic assisted therapy for people. And so this is a really cool opportunity to sort of learn how we could like facilitate a model like that. and to do actual hands-on work. So we did set up a graduate student CAP group, which was actually very difficult to recruit for. So I also want to talk about like the other side of the internship process, which is sometimes you do things and sometimes they don't work. So, this was one example of that where we put a lot of time and effort into developing a graduate student CAP group, but didn't end up working out. But we did end up pivoting, and now we do have a future CAP group is kind of set up based on what we had planned and on the infrastructure that we sort of set up prior to that. So it's very exciting. That will be taking place in November. Additionally, we ended up actually reaching out. I reached out to Owen, and we sort of talked about setting up a collaboration with Ari. And we felt like that, and we can kind of get into that a little bit later. So that was really cool. So that's kind of another thing of like, whenever someone in the program, you kind of help each other out, which is really cool. So yeah, oh gosh, I'm getting off topic now. Or not on topic, I'm just rambling at this point. But yeah, more
I think it's very
recently,
coherent. It's
yeah.
not rambling, but I think that's a good example.
Appreciate it.
The students in our program, I think Owen and Mike can both speak to this, are very tight knit in terms of forming a community,
Hmm.
and I think it stems from, we were talking about this before the event. We're all passionate about the field and kind of the industry, and you all have a different perspective on things. As you can kind of see, Owen's background is a lot different from Maya's background. Maya, real quick, I want to I'll get into Owen. Let's I believe you had your hand raised. So what do you got on your mind? And then Maya, I want to go back to what you kind of currently have going on too. And then talking about your transition from your internship and how you kind of got this particular role that you have upcoming. But Owen, what's up?
I was just gonna brag too and add that until Maya brought it up that we had the opportunity to like do the collaboration between Ari and Integrata too, which still kind of in the works. Like it's just I don't know, the pace of different internships are not always the
Hmm.
most aligned. So I mean
Yeah.
I just kind of like work with each other when we can. But yeah, from what I understand, unless anything's changed, that has, been put in motion where, one of the kind of pilot providers from Ari, who actually was also a graduate, who's going to be like working on the platform, will, and also I think lives in Madison and works with the ketamine clinic, will, be able to kind of just like work with, like Maya's our clinic with Integrata and everything and try to make the platform itself more, I guess, like not no pun intended, but like integrated into Integrata's operations and whatnot, and see if we could like make anything out of that, basically. Which, like, as Maya was saying, sometimes you do stuff and it doesn't work, which is still also like a valuable experience. I think I mean, particularly in entrepreneurship, but I mean, especially in like anything else, really. I mean, like you're gonna fail sometimes, and you're gonna have to learn like between idea and execution, like what happened and what went wrong, basically, and how to, learn and grow, which I think is also like a pretty, valuable thing. And to be able to do that through the program too, whether it's like through the, internships themselves or like other kind of independent work electives and everything too, where you can kind of have your own projects and ideas to put forth and whatnot. That's definitely something that I've found to be pretty valuable just because, yeah, if it was like just coursework until I graduated, which like you can do that, no one's forcing you to do anything like more kind of like involved, I guess. But, I think if I were just, yeah, be going through the motions like that and, not really being able to apply what I've learned, then probably would be a bit less enjoyable of an experience. Probably I would learn less, I think, overall if I were to just kind of, yeah, stay in the classroom. But, the opportunity to do that, I think, has been a highlight of the program for me. But that was all I had to say on that. Just wanted to brag a little bit.
I always love this though, because there's always some sort of
Mm.
overlap between a lot of our students on their internships. So Mike, kind of what's your next step now? Kind of thinking about
Yes.
jobs and careers. So
Yeah.
can you kind of talk about not just what's in front of you, but kind of
Yeah.
how you got to that point and maybe lessons from your internship?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think a big thing is kind of what Owen was sort of pointing to is a lot of this field is developing and we're kind of at the forefront of its development. And so, like working with Integrata in particular, really learned that, especially in the clinical realm of things, which is what I'm personally interested in. I'm actually applying to medical school next year. There's actually a few folks in our program that are currently in the medical school application process. So a lot of us, like, even though the program is geared towards going into industry, a lot of us do want that clinical background work and the program is also set up to support us in that capacity as well. And so that's been really cool. Like I specifically chose the Intergrata internship because I wanted hands-on clinical work, and I have been able to get that, which has been really awesome. And that sort of has helped me land my current position that I actually just found out that I got. But I will be I will be on one of the clinical research trials in the Raison lab here at UW. So I will be working within that lab, and which is very exciting. And kind of going back to what I was saying, in that a lot of like what I did at Integrata did help me get that position. So even if an internship is a stepping stone to something long term, it's good to kind of have your mind's eye on what you sort of want your trajectory to look like. Like I had a very clear vision of how I wanted this internship to serve me. And so, and how I wanted to contribute to the clinic, and sort of what like my overall like career path is going to look like. And so for me, like getting my hands dirty with clinical work is really important to me. Getting my hands dirty with clinical research is really important to me because those are skills that I want to foster and work I want to contribute to. So, yeah, I think that's definitely helped me land my current position that I'm in right now. I also have clinical work background, so that's definitely helped. I've known I wanted to go to medical school for the past year, so that's also helped quite a bit in terms of like guiding my decisions. Um, and yeah, it's been really fruitful to sort of apply what I've learned from the program, combined with these experiences to like foster new opportunities. And then also like help with like more like long-term plans, as I've stated. So
Well, again, congrats. We just found
thank
out
you.
before the call, so congrats.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
Owen, I'm actually curious. I'd like to hear briefly. I think I've worked with you for a while, and you've done like a lot of taking advantage about for things through our program, but also you've done a whole heck of a lot of networking, kind of on your own kind of time and kind of your own thing away from the program, which is something that I think I've mentioned, like emphasizing, giving you the tools and taking advantage, but also make sure that you kind of guide your own path. So can you talk about kind of, what when you started the program as a capstone student, now where you are in terms of being comfortable networking and having some of these opportunities kind of come at your, um, get in front of you, but also you mentioned kind of maybe getting rejection here and there. So can you talk a little bit about your path from learning how to network to getting jobs through the program, jobs outside the program, but also sometimes that how you bounce back, because some of this is going to be applying for jobs and you're not going to get jobs, right? You're not going to get every single job you apply for. So how do you kind of handle that when you've got multiple things going at one time? It's a big question, I know. So let me know if you need any of it repeated.
Yeah, so I guess probably could start with like the networking stuff first, and then probably go into more of like the stuff about like how that leads to jobs and stuff like that, which like caveat, I wouldn't say that I've landed necessarily like a dream job per se from having been in the program so far, as far as like something that's like super involved in the psychedelic world and is super cool and pays the bills and does all that. That's also maybe just a super unrealistic expectation, just because of like where the state of the field is in, layered on top of like the state of kind of like the larger macro economy right now. So I mean, like as much as I'm sure we'd all love to have a gig like that, it's maybe not the time for that just yet. So, there seems to be some, I guess like positive and signals from some of the people that I talk to that maybe something like that or something that approximates it will be more readily available in the coming years, just based on, sentiments from investors and, the government and whatnot. Nonetheless, as far as, yeah, kind of the initial networking process, I'll just say it can definitely just suck sometimes, like that, and just like applying to jobs. Like it's just a little part of you might just die every time you submit an application and it just gets rejected, which like, some people might have more bandwidth to, withstand that at the moment, which like that's not where everybody is at right now. I mean, sometimes you just gotta like be a bit more pragmatic and, work somewhere not entirely related to what you're studying and, just kind of be doing like the free volunteer nonprofit work in the meantime, which has been, what I've been doing for the past like 2 or so years. And not to like, you know, talk lightly of that because I mean, a lot of the opportunities that I've gotten through nonprofits like the Chacruno Institute have been transformational and like just a way to put it basically. Like at least kind of going back to like the initial networking conversation. I mean, when I first kind of started really considering this program, I mean, like I had just moved to Colorado, worked at a psychiatric practice and was applying to, grad school and everything, like I was saying. And it seemed like there was just like a lot of pieces that were like loosely related kind of floating around. And I was like having a hard time, taking them and putting them into, coherent format in a way that would make sense as far as like my next steps for my career educational advancement or whatnot. But, being lucky enough to be in Colorado at the time that I was in, like, like late 22, early 23, like right when the Natural Medicine Health Act had passed. I mean, like that was a luxury that I know not everybody is super able to enjoy. I mean, like whether it's, people in Colorado or Oregon or New Mexico now with like these state regulated systems, or if you're in like close proximity to, a psychedelic research hub like Madison is or something like that, then you'll definitely have hopefully more luck because, at least in my case, I was able to do stuff like find, psychedelic meetup groups and things like that too. Like there's one called the NOAC Society in Colorado that is, local and has these meetups and like Colorado Springs, Denver, Boulder, like all across. And that's just like one of like many formal organizations on top of like a just larger kind of culture of people who are really interested in it out here. So I mean, I definitely was fortunate to be able to enjoy that and meet people and go to conferences and just be so close by to everything and whatnot. If that's not the case, then like there is always the ability to get on LinkedIn and yeah, just kind of do the long game of like the cold outreach and just talking to people, which like I definitely had to. I think I not that I have like a huge following on LinkedIn necessarily, but I think I started in 2022 or three with like a brand new LinkedIn account. And yeah, now I've just kind of done enough like messaging and talking and that whole game to where I have like a pretty solid network of people, I would say. Definitely quality over quantity, but it's neither here nor there. But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, there is always, I think, a way to get involved in networking. Especially, I mean, given that the program is like for a lot of people mostly online. I mean, I was used to that since like my last year of undergrad when I was graduating during like the initial part of the COVID pandemic. But if you see, I don't know, I think like I found in the psychedelic world specifically, and I'm sure probably Maya can attest to this as well, or other people as well who have been in this space. I mean, like I think people are generally like really open and willing to like talk to you about stuff. I mean, like I don't know if you're going to be able to get like the time of day with like Robin Carhart Harris necessarily because he's like a busy guy. But most other people, like if you are persistent and make a case of like, hey, I've done my homework and your research looks interesting, or like your company is cool, I like the mission. Can you like, chat about it for a little bit? Like I've found that like most times people are willing to engage in that. I mean, like sometimes you just like don't get an answer back, and that's just because people are, busy and maybe just don't check LinkedIn at all. But I mean, that's always a way to start. I mean, like also too, I mean, like I'm a program ambassador myself, and I've had a lot of people reach out, just cold outreach, ask about the PPI program, and most times I'm available enough to be able to lend a few minutes or however long it may be to talk about my experience and any tips and whatnot, which also feel free to do that too after the call if you need. But yeah, I mean, like I think whether you're lucky enough to be in a place like Colorado or Madison or wherever it may be, where you're in such close proximity to a network like that and all the resources and all that entails, I mean, you can still, even though it, might feel like a longer slog, you also, can take advantage of these, different kinds of media and whatnot and stay engaged in the community wherever that may be, or just kind of the larger conversation in some way or another. Which like definitely if you, I guess, like plot the I guess like the trajectory of how my networking has gone. I mean, it definitely like started out like super duper slow and then ever so slightly started curving up. And then like at a certain point, you just like hit a critical mass of people, and then they'll refer you to the next person who gives you that internship or that job or that volunteer position, which like that's I think more or less how it worked out with me for like the work with like Jagruna and everything, and then the opportunities that that has led to, which are just now budding. And I can't totally speak a ton to, but definitely I think I would say I have like, hopefully something to look forward to and like a meaningful, cool project and potential employment and otherwise just like an exciting prospect, I think that I don't think I otherwise would have had outside of the program. And
So
then,
the snowball effect,
yeah, seriously,
right?
no,
Like talking to one person and then they talk to another.
yeah, no, it really works like that. I mean, it's a small world
So,
in the
so
psychedelic
real
community.
quick, we'll come back, but I want to get to it. Looks like Maya has hand raised, and then I do have one question for Maya too.
Yeah, I was just going to add to Owen's point about networking. I started off with zero connections in the field. I didn't know a single person when I graduated in 2023, and I went to psychedelic science. I started slowly building my network. I got involved with intercollegiate psychedelics network. I'm now a director for IPN, and we do a lot of like really cool events, and I've met so many amazing
Sorry, do
people
you want
through
to clarify
there.
what IPM is, just in
Yeah,
case you may not be familiar
yeah.
with it?
Intercollegiate Psychedelics Network is a global nonprofit that basically, well, we technically are under a different nonprofit side. Anyways, I won't get into that at the moment, but we basically have connected just people from all over the world in the psychedelic field. So it's geared towards students and young professionals, but we really welcome anyone. We host seminars with really awesome people. We have one coming up with Rosalind Watts, which is very exciting. We've had some really incredible people come out and we've had a lot of support. We also host Psychedelics. So if you have any like new work, any work that you want to just like talk about, you can apply to Psychedelics. It's an online virtual conference. You get paired with a mentor, typically a postdoc or PhD student, and they will mentor you through basically taking this idea and creating it into a whole presentation that you can then, we've had people get into PhD programs because of it. It's really cool work. But all that to say, like, um, a lot of network building kind of happened through a lot of free work, and it does happen, especially in the academic space. I also am involved with Fireside Project and have been on the hotline for over 2 years at this point, but like really took the time to like invest in those relationships and sort of like it's also kind of about curating your own story too, right? It's like, okay, I have this experience, like how does this tie into this? How does this tie into this? The people can help you, of course, but I think like showing up as a with genuine passion and having a clear vision and idea of what you want to contribute to each space that you enter is incredibly important. And I think that can facilitate good network connections, but it can also facilitate job opportunities. Like for example, the most recent position I got happened in part because I knew a few people that worked directly with the Raison Lab. They helped me out, they know me, they know how I work. We have a good friendship, we have a good like work relationship, professional relationship. And so, yeah, like Owen said, having people that vouch for you is incredibly important, but that also takes a lot of time and a lot of building. So if you're not there quite yet too, like it does take time. And but the program definitely has helped me so much in that regard as well. So yeah, just wanted
Thank
to,
you.
yeah.
Well, this is me. I wish I could talk all night. Honestly, we need a whole separate section where I can just have you two on, and we can just have a Q&A forum for an hour.
Yeah.
I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of my job is
Uh,
chatting with students. I do want to, before I leave with last minute words of wisdom from Owen and Maya. Um, Anyone on the chat or call have any questions right now? I want to make sure anything gets answered, specifically about kind of internships, networking, kind of my specific domain where Owen and Maya could also chime in. If not, that's okay. I just want to give everybody a chance to kind of chime in if they have anything on their mind. All right, great. So I do want to give Owen and Maya one last pearl of wisdom opportunity or a recommendation or kind of like a reflection. Just because they've been very gracious with their time, so I want to give them a chance to be the experts. What do you have to say for the folks that are either listening right now or on the call related to either our program, internships, jobs, or just life in general? Owen, you first.
I don't know if I'll have anything particularly profound right off the top. So in that case, I am also putting my email there in case anybody cares to, yeah, follow up or anything. I do have like close to 1,000 unread emails that might get lost in the mix of, but I promise I'll do my best to get back when I have the attentional capacity. But as far as Any tidbits right now? Probably like Maya said, I mean, one, be prepared to do free work, which kind of sucks, but like, you know, a lot of I have people I've just kind of found as like a principle that like a lot of people in this field, like we said, are doing it because they like are really interested in or curious about it or motivated by it, and just kind of like a general desire to see the world be a better place. And, with some exceptions, I don't think like a ton of people are in this to get rich quick, which maybe that kind of phase of this field has kind of come and gone in the early part of the 2020s, I guess. But, I think given that, if you're kind of starting from zero with this, I mean, well, that's not ever totally true. I mean, like I think like even if you're like totally coming from an unrelated field, you can more or less try to find your kind of wedge into this field and, draw on your own background, skill, experiences, knowledge, perspective, etc., and make a meaningful contribution, which like, yeah, granted, you might be starting maybe not from zero, but like 0.1 basically. But I think as long as kind of you're prepared to like play the long game, to so to speak, there usually is a way forward in some way, shape, or form, I would say. It wasn't entirely clear what mine was going into this. And as enough time passes by and you talk to people and do all the things we've been talking about, I mean, yeah, like Maya said, it definitely does come down to a certain point of like talking about I don't totally love the use of this word or phrase, but like your like story, so to speak. I mean, it can be, I guess, like kind of cheesy, but like it's, it really has a certain amount of truth to it and everything, which like it's always going to be a work in progress, basically. But I think like being able to speak to like, what initially interested you in this, like what brought you here, like why this, why now? That's really important to be able to articulate really clearly, whether it's like for, the program application or hitting somebody up with like no context on LinkedIn just to like talk to them about something you're interested in. So and I realize I've been rambling, so I don't know if there's like a one-liner I can just deliver
Well,
to
you already used
hopefully
the
drive
one
it
liner,
home.
right?
Right.
So on a
Yeah.
piece of paper. I'd also
Yeah.
like to say you got the marketing chops. So I want to work with you on brainstorming a new way to talk about your story because I'm in agreement. Like I work with students a lot on how do you talk about your experiences, tell your story. I need to lean on you to get some marketing, kind of change that narrative, how we talk about that in our workshops. Because I agree, a lot of this is about kind of talking about your background and kind of explaining who you are, who you were, and where you're kind of going. So um, I'll lean on you for that. Maya, your turn. What do you want to leave the guests on the call with?
Yeah, I know I said the free work thing, and I also like want to emphasize, I know Owen did too, that free work is really incredible, and a lot of us do it in the field. Even professionals like at Integrata too, like a lot of people take a hit pay-wise because they genuinely care about the work that they do and they're very passionate about it. But that just sort of goes to show that like, but I think in any career path you have to make sacrifices to a certain extent. And it's not even a sacrifice whenever you are creating something new and novel and exploring something and uh sort of contributing something to the greater society, which is really incredible in and of itself. But yeah, I think like again, it is cheesy to say like, "Hey, lean on your story, make sure you curate it, make sure you know who you are," because that just sounds like you're sort of like reading off a script or something. But what I mean by that is like, do things because your heart is there. Honestly, be intentional about who you talk to, um, who you sort of for like whenever you're in a conversation with someone, be present with them. Connect with your work, connect with your personal lives. Like it's incredibly important to sort of like not curate relationships again, that sounds weird, but to build build relationships with a lot of like honesty and a lot of honesty and care and intentionality behind them. I think that's probably the most important thing. And then, yeah, it's also okay not to have things completely figured out as well. And sometimes you do have to take it day by day. But I think that's where like the community aspect really comes into play because a lot of us are in the same boat and we're also like honing in on different skills or maybe discovering new ones we didn't know we had. And so like I think a big part of this program too is sort of like allowing like encouraging each person to sort of like explore that realm and sort of develop their own skill sets. And yeah, I think that's it, actually.
No, that's great. I always use the
Yeah.
word authenticity. There's certain words I use a
Yeah.
lot. It's both Owen and
It's
mine.
like it's such
Authenticity
a
is kind of a good.
cliche,
It is, but
but
it's true, right? Like I think that's going to
yeah.
lead to more positive outcomes, and you're going to be happier and more fulfilled when you do.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
both are great. I love that we ended both of you saying kind of the cliche thing, like the authenticity and the story. I love that. That makes me so happy. But no, it's true. I think that's one thing. I'm so glad you both joined us because you both have such a unique story, to use Owen's favorite term, but also it's so different. But your perspectives are very similar in some ways, and so it kind of is a good, I think, representation of students in our program and kind of where they're from and kind of how they think and operate. So I know we're way over time, but I really had fun tonight. So thank you so much, Owen and Maya, for joining us. I know you put your emails in chat. Also, feel free to, I believe after this, you'll be able to connect with me too. Feel free to send me an email. We also have some other email addresses you can send for more information. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn too. Owen, you need to join our PPI group within LinkedIn. I know we're connected, but we got to get you in the PPI group too. And Maya, I'm not sure if you're in there either. But yes, let's connect. We'd love to have you chat. You can connect with an enrollment coach, or you can email us just at coach@pdc.wis.edu. Or if you're old school, you'd like to give us a call, feel free to do that. We have a lot of these webinars also on YouTube that cover a lot of different things, whether it's admissions, courses, academic curricular stuff, or things like this where we talk about employers. So with that, I will end and say thank you and have a wonderful night or morning or afternoon, whenever it is you're watching it. Special thanks to Owen and Maya. This was fantastic. I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you did too. And Owen and Maya, I'll be in touch soon in terms of career stuff. You know, I never leave. So I look forward to seeing where everybody ends up, and hopefully we have some more future badgers on this call. So thank you, everyone, and have a nice evening.